Video number 3, and we're just gonna dive right into the questions. No bullshit, just skip right to the good stuff. Next question from Wavy213. What is your opinion on the whole Syria situation? Like, how do you see it playing out, or potential solutions that you would propose? I.e., do you think Russia will keep Assad in power? Will the US get their way and remove him? Does Turkey shooting down Russia's Su-24 lead up to World War III or Gulf War? Blah, 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 blah. You see the whole question. And he says he's sorry, it seems like major question, but yeah, they are all related and shit like that. Now, let me backtrack for a second, because before I get into my answer on Syria, I want to point out something that political leaders always seem to ignore. It's a mistake that has been made from years and years and years over, time and time again. When you overthrow a dictator, now I'm talking an absolute scumbag of a human being, it only makes the situation in their country worse for the immediate term. And you can look back in recent history, you can look at ancient history. Every time a dictator has been toppled, the country he has run has turned to shit immediately afterwards, and it takes years to fix the problem like that. You see the results of Iraq and killing Saddam Hussein. You see the effects of Muammar Gaddafi being overthrown. You saw it with historical figures like Idi Amin, Chiang Kai-shek, Lenin, Hitler, Ho Chi Minh, Emperor Hirohito, Pol Pot. When dictators are overthrown, usually from civil wars within their country, or in rare cases global wars, the struggle for power begins. When you have a dictator that keeps an iron grip on power, keeps a circle of friends in positions of power, and stifles the competition, then you will have a power struggle that occurs afterwards. The struggle will occur between the loyalists who supported the dictator and the opposition who wanted him gone. Now, in recent cases of dictators being overthrown in the Middle East, it paved the way for terrorists. It paved the way for ISIS and Al-Qaeda to enter these countries under war and operate without worry of military conflict. If a country has no leadership and it's fighting with itself, then that paves the way for other criminals, extremists, and terrorists to use that country as a beachhead for their bullshit. Now, no matter what happens with Assad, Syria is completely fucked right now. ISIS has pretty much invaded the country and taken over key cities. Assad could care less about terrorists who are targeting other countries. He just wants to keep himself in power by defeating the rebellion. So his limited and unskilled military is fighting another unskilled set of fighters. Russia is antagonizing the situation because they're bombing the resistance mainly, while indirectly bombing ISIS and then saying they're combating terrorists in the process. Oh man, Russia's so full of shit. Either way, Assad's gonna lose power. There is no question about that. And if it wasn't for Russia as is, he would have lost it a long time ago. When he loses power, the ISIS problem is only going to get worse. So at this point, it's a matter of pick your poison. Do you want a shitty criminal warlord scumbag running a dysfunctional country by abusing his people? Or do you want terrorists to take over a destabilized region once that dictator is knocked out of power? No matter what, it's two shitty choices, and Russia is not helping the issue by backing another dictator. Now, as for Turkey shooting down their jets, I'll say this. Russia has not responded with a military attack. They've responded with sanctions and bans and a financial retaliation, which is actually surprising for them. You know, given all of Putin's bluster and claims about being a nuclear country and throwing out his nuclear capabilities just to show off his e-penis, they haven't retaliated directly. They haven't attacked Turkey, and part of that is knowing that Turkey is a NATO-issued country. As much shit as Russia will talk, as much shit as they say they're gonna do, they're not going to fight 28 countries as well as 15 others that work with NATO. That's just not going to happen. You know, Russia is like the big kid in the class who likes to instigate shit, but knows that 15 other kids won't like him, and they'll all kick his ass simultaneously. He'll antagonize one at a time. He'll threaten one at a time, knowing that he could beat up just one kid, but knows that all the kids ganging up on him means an ass kicking is coming. That's how Russia acts like. Let's antagonize one, but when all 15 gang up on me, I'm gonna back up and say, oh no, I was just testing the waters or whatever the case it is. That's how Russia acts in almost every instance of international aggression. But I'll say this right now. The best case scenario for Syria is long gone, which would have been having Assad leave during the Arab Springs a few years ago. Now it's just a matter of how much damage is going to be done once he does essentially leave, and it's going to be who's going to end up picking up the pieces once he's gone and trying to remove ISIS once he is finally thrown out of the country. It's a shitty situation overall that's going to persist for years and years down the road. Next question from Oh My God Black Star. What do you think about SJWs and feminists affecting the gaming industry? And for those of you who want to know what SJW is, social justice warrior. Now, I've probably discussed bits and pieces of this in other questions, but let's be honest about this for a second. Women are treated like shit. Women are treated like second-class citizens when it comes to video games, and I will tell you right the fuck now, if any one of you that just heard those words disagreed with me immediately, You are part of the fucking problem. Video games are a male-dominated industry, from development to sales to game time to money we invest in this as a hobby. Yet women make up a portion of the genre, but they're treated like absolute shit. From name-calling and catcalls in rooms when they actually get into lobbies and shit like that, to being subjected to bullshit on Twitch just for being a female gamer, to generalized sexist comments or sexualized insults, to even in the games treated as objects, women are treated like shit. But here's where I draw the line. Every player, man or woman, deserves to at least be treated equally. They deserve to be able to play their hobby with respect and not have to worry about being treated like a second-class citizen, being treated like a sex object, or given attention just because they're female. The few female gamers that I have played with that are on my list, I treat them exactly how I treat everyone else in the room. We joke around, they're treated like anyone else, they're not treated as a female gamer, but as an equal who shares my hobby. How fucking difficult is it to treat someone with respect when they treat you with respect? And granted, when I get into rooms with people, if it's a girl trash talking me on the other team, I'm gonna trash talk right the fuck back. If it's someone teabagging me, I'm gonna teabag them right the fuck back. If it's someone who annoys the shit out of me, male or female, I'm going to make fun of them and crack jokes at their expense to shut the fuck up. Doesn't matter age or gender or what. If you annoy me, you're going to know about it. Now, as far as feminists invading video games, here's the problem. There's two parts to this. First is the respect that I mentioned. When male gamers do not respect female gamers, when you treat them like shit and have this Stone Age mentality that they're not your equals, then you're just asking for feminists to invade your hobbies. Think about this for a second. When there are perceived civil rights violations against black people, who's the first motherfucker on the scene? Al Sharpton, trying to put his name in the papers again. So when you treat women like shit in anything, who do you think is going to champion their cause? Feminists. Of course, the reason why feminists are so vocal about games is because men are assholes and they treat women like shit in the first place. If you treated them with some fucking respect, they wouldn't go after video games. They wouldn't bother calling you out for being obnoxious, sexist, chauvinist men. It's like the old saying goes, you don't want none, you don't start none. When male gamers grow the fuck up, this wouldn't be an issue, a stupid issue at that. Now, the second part of this is when feminists like to argue over the treatment of women in video games. Dumb sex objects with little use other than eye candy and shit like that. Some of the most exploitive games like that Japanese cum pump video. Or for example, God of War. It's always had a sex scene. Heavy Rain had the nude shower scene simply to add nudity to the game, and of course their favorite target, Grand Theft Auto, for how they treat women there. Here's my thing. Yes, women in some of the more satire-ish games are treated like shit. But the reality is, that's freedom of expression, and that's how it's always going to work. The same way they have the freedom to voice their displeasure is the same freedom a developer has to making a woman look like Japanese cum-pun. Are there games that give women strong characters to play like the new Lara Croft or Final Fantasy? Sure. Are there games that exploit them? Absolutely. But this goes back to the original point that this is a male-dominated industry, and men are going to cater to male egos, male libidos in buying games. So we're going to see naked women in games. We're going to see women in bikinis in male-dominated character games. I understand their argument. They want to see women in better roles because that would entice women to play more video games. Again, the 10-year-old boys will hate that idea, but ultimately, that decision is left up to the developer who wants to convey their artistic expression the way they want. Could they create an awesome game with a solid female lead character? Absolutely. But should it be done just to appease feminists? Hell fucking no. If a studio came up with a story that works better with a man or a woman as the lead character, I'd rather go with the story that makes sense instead of what appeals to politically correctness. But in satire games like Grand Theft Auto, no. Men are just shown to be just as stupid in those games as women. Feminists can certainly argue and bitch all they want about giving females better roles in games, but unlike their fight for treating actual gamers with respect, this one boils down to freedom of expression. And that's something that should not be limited just to keep them happy. Next question from Will Duncan. I know New York and California and a few other states have extremely strict gun laws, but what is your opinion on the current attempts by the government to push through even more gun control? Now, I've talked about guns and gun control in past videos, why shootings occur, what's going to work, what isn't going to work, but here's the reality. No law changes, whether it's on the state level, city level, or federal level across the entire country, are going to alter the gun problems that we have in this country. The scary reality is that the people who should not have guns already have them. And because this country had so many guns to begin with, it's very easy to get your hands on one regardless of what state or city you live in. Case in point, this is one that I'm always going to refer to. I live here in New York City. We have some of the strictest gun laws in the entire country. However, we have quite a number of gun deaths each year from illegal guns. So gun rights groups will show that New York City gun laws do not work. If we have the strictest gun laws in the country, how come we still have so many gun deaths? And the answer is very simple. These illegal guns do not come from New York City or New York State. They constantly come from other states. It is not hard for a criminal or a gangbanger or a terrorist to get their hands on a gun from out of state where the laws are a lot more lax than we have it here, bring them to the city where you can do maximum damage. Then gun groups will point to the fact that if everyone had a gun, then shootings would not occur. Again, completely and brain-fuckingly wrong. Most gun deaths in this country are poverty or gang related, with gang members shooting other gang members who most certainly have their own version of illegal guns. Majority of gun deaths come from handguns and pistols, not military grade weapons. However, when there is a mass shooting with a fully automatic weapon, they make headlines as to why that shooting occurred and how it could be prevented in the future. The NRA wants you to believe that a person with the same weapon would be able to stop the shooter. The gun control advocates want you to believe that gun control laws will stop that person from getting a gun in the first place. The reality is neither plan is going to work. As much as the NRA wants people to believe that a civilian with a weapon will stop mass shootings, the reality is, if you put the average person in a situation like that, a gun owner with some basic training but no experience at actually shooting people, the odds of them stopping a crazed gunman in a fight are slim to none. Now keep in mind, the NRA is the same exact group that advocates if there's a school shooting, a gunman in a school, that kids should go out and attack the gunman head on and try and fight back. Yeah, real fucking genius idea this is. Send kindergartners towards a crazed adult with a gun telling them to fight back. That should work. Are you fucking serious? No, I'm not lying about this shit. That is exactly what they said to do in any case of school shooting. Gun control backers say that if the guy never had a gun in the first place, the laws prevented him from doing so, it would never happen. Bullshit. As I already said in New York City, it's not hard to get a weapon outside of the law, even if you try closing all these loopholes, because that does not stop the sale of personal weapons, which we do not have tracked. Neither side's method is going to work. Giving everyone a gun isn't going to stop gun violence. Taking away guns certainly isn't going to stop it, because criminals sure as fuck won't follow the laws. You tell everyone, hey, we're going to all take all of our guns back. You think a criminal's going to voluntarily say, oh yeah, here's my illegal gun? No, if they already ignored the law to get the gun, they're going to ignore the law to give it back. What the fuck? Next question from AVX Gamer. Last question and answer. You guessed Rand Paul would be the Republican nominee for president. 6 months later, do you still think he's going to win, or do you see another candidate winning? And although it's a second question, but related to the first, why do you think Trump still leads in the polls? Obviously, this is why I stick to video games instead of being a politician. Although I will say this, part of that video and part of that answer that I gave a few months ago was pretty accurate. I'll get into that in a minute. But to your direct question, I don't think Rand Paul is going to win the nomination at this point. I think he'll be there at the end because he's a stubborn, arrogant motherfucker, but he's not going to win the nomination. I had him in my final grouping of people along with Marco Rubio, who seems to be the safe choice at this point, and I don't think Trump is going to win. Not based on how he's trying to win, and the other crazy-ass candidates are not going to win either. So, let me explain why. When you hear that Trump is leading the race, Trump is leading the polls and whatnot, and that's not the most accurate way of portraying who will win the nomination for many reasons, a various number of reasons. First of all, where does the media get these numbers from? Well, there are companies who do polls for them, and you've probably heard of the Quinnipiac polls, the NPD polls, etc. You know how these companies get their numbers? They cold call people. They randomly call people whose phone numbers have been placed in a database and ask them, who will you be voting for? And here's the problem. Normal fucking people aren't the ones answering the phones. The people who answer phones are idiots with nothing better else to do. Just think about this for a second. When you get a call from a number that you don't recognize, how often do you pick that shit up? When you have caller ID and you see some cold calling number, do you pick it up? No, of course not. You ignore that shit. So imagine, who are the motherfuckers actually answering the phone? You know who? Old people. People with nobody to talk to. Crazy people with no fucking friends. Extremely fucked up people in the head who just want to bitch at something, and these are the people that these idiots are actually calling for polls. So when you hear that Trump is winning, he's not winning across the country. He's winning the cold calling wars. He's winning the solicitation battles that most normal people don't give a shit about. These polls that put him in first place are all from crazy, antisocial, old, lonely ass people with no caller ID. Now the other reason he's in front is because all the other normal candidates are basically canceling each other out. As I said in the last question and answer session, you had about 14 to 15 normal politicians and then a handful of batshit crazy candidates or outsiders and whatnot. Of the normal candidates, Some of the more unknowns are starting to drop out because they just stood no chance. Rick Perry from Texas was a clueless motherfucker. Scott Walker from Wisconsin because he was going to be eviscerated by unions. Lindsey Graham, who nobody gave a shit about. Bobby Jindal, who never recovered from that awful retort of the State of the Union address a few years ago. Other candidates like George Pataki, Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, he's on the verge of batshit crazy as a candidate. These guys will be dropping out soon enough for the lack of money and support. Meanwhile, the candidate appealing to all the crazy people out there is Trump. He's tapped into the sad and pathetic part of our country, which is the racist sectors, the fearful sectors who believe all Muslims are terrorists, the ignorant assholes who believe all Mexicans are illegals. He's winning by exciting the human garbage in the country with lies, inaccurate statements, ridiculously bullshit statements with no basis in fact or logic, and the crazy people who answer the phones are the ones buying this shit and saying that they're going to vote for him. However, all the normal candidates who have been splitting votes from all the informed voters are behind in these bullshit polls. Why? Because the normal people aren't answering questions, and the normal people are sort of sitting back and waiting to see which of the other normal candidates are going to drop out. What you're going to get in the end is you're going to get one normal candidate against one crazy candidate. I have a feeling that Trump is going to actually out-crazy Ben Carson. Oh, there's another motherfucker thinks he's the second coming of Jesus. But anyway, they're basically going to wait for one normal candidate to come out of this pack. It's most likely going to be Marco Rubio based on all the polls and shit like that. And no, I don't put Ted Cruz in the normal. He's in the batshit crazy candidates. There's no question about that shit. But once all the other normal candidates start dropping out, once the other seasoned politicians realize that they don't have a chance of winning, you're going to start noticing more of the normal voters start gravitating towards the person that they can all get behind. If they feel like, hey, Marco Rubio seems like he stands a good chance of beating Donald Trump, let's all put our support behind him. If we feel like he could beat Hillary Clinton, hey, let's all put our support behind this guy. I have a feeling that he's going to end up being the candidate, and he's mainly going to be the candidate because right now it's just a lack of choice against Trump. Pyro Puncher wants to know, do you think Donald Trump will make a good comedian? Personally, I think he's running a comedic campaign to begin with. I mean, seriously, he cannot be serious with all of his bullshit in his fucking campaign. To me, this just looks like he thinks he's still on reality TV. He still thinks that once the cameras are rolling, he has to say something that drives up ratings for whatever channel he's going to be on. Personally, I know he says he's serious about this campaign, but with half of the shit that he's saying, there is no question that it just doesn't seem like a serious campaign. As far as being a good comedian, chances are he doesn't even realize he's the punchline to pretty much all the jokes out there. Next question from Forsaken King 90. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump? Personally, I just can't believe he's stuck around this fucking long in the goddamn campaign. To me, look, what he's doing is he's tapping into some of the worst possible voters you could possibly imagine. The racists, the bigots, the sexists, you name it. Pretty much anyone that wants to discriminate against other people, pretty much anyone that wants to be prejudiced towards another group, this is who he's appealing to. To me, this has to be the biggest scumbag campaign I have ever seen a president run. And the good thing is, he will never win. There is just no question in my mind. The people that he's running against right now in the primary, whoever he runs up against in a Democratic election, if he were to make it to the final presidential vote, he's not going to win. Alright, so we're going to wrap up this video right here. Now, we'll tell you this. Tomorrow will be the last video of the week. Obviously, on New Year's Day, I'm not going to post anything. So tomorrow's going to be the final question and answer. I'm going to answer the final few questions that I had that absolutely needed the most time to answer because I had a lot of shit to talk about. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all the good shit. And I'll see you in tomorrow's video, which will be the last one of 2015 from me.